Hey, Andrew here for mynexttablet.com. Today with an unboxing of the new Apple iPad 9. Let's get started. Alright, let's start the unboxing of the new Apple iPad 9 that should be available pretty much everywhere now. In the United States, it starts at $329, so it's very affordable, just like its predecessor. And if you're in the European Union, you have to pay 379 euros. And I guess the prices are very similar elsewhere in the world. Alright, inside the box, we've got the tablet itself first. And you can already see that the design did not change at all compared to its predecessor. Then we got the standard paperwork, quick start guide, warranty stuff and so on. And of course, the Apple stickers. Then there's a Lightning to USB-C cable. So it means this tablet still has a Lightning connector. And then there's a standard USB-C charger included as well. Yeah, I've been using this iPad for a couple of days already. It arrived on Friday and we've got Wednesday. And yeah, I played with it a bit, watched some YouTube, surfed the web a bit, used the Apple Pencil. So now I can tell you my first impressions of this tablet, and it starts with the design, which really did not change at all compared to the iPad 8 and also compared to the iPad 7. We've got a 10.2-inch screen, which is a bit larger than older iPads, which originally had 9.7-inch screens, so it did get a bit bigger, but the rest of the design is identical. We've got very thick black screen bezels on the top and on the bottom. And on the bottom, there continues to be a physical hardware home button with an integrated Touch ID fingerprint scanner. So just like on previous generations, you can unlock the tablet very fast and reliable using Touch ID. So yeah, and it's still a home button, by the way, so you don't have to use gestures if you don't want to get to the home screen. That's the only iPad with a physical home button. This front-facing camera, which sits here, has changed as well. Now we're getting a 12-megapixel ultra-wide-angle camera, just like on the iPad Pro, the new one, and also like on the iPad mini. So it's an ultra-wide-angle camera now, which is very nice and certainly very interesting if you like to take a lot of selfies or video chats with your iPad 9. And a nice feature is also center stage. When you are having a Skype or Zoom call, the camera follows you around a bit when you're moving. That's a very nice feature that Apple introduced recently with the iPad Pro and this new ultra-wide-angle camera that now also sits inside the iPad 9. But on the back, we still get the old 8-megapixel camera with a very small sensor, so the photos are not amazing. There's no LED flash and no second camera. The Apple logo is here, and we still get an aluminum body, and it does feel as high-end as the first iPad, basically. As the last generations, it's a full aluminum body. Build quality is good. All the transitions from the screen to the body are fine, so the build quality is good. It certainly does feel higher-end than a plastic tablet would, but it's still the old design. It's 7.5 millimeters thin, which certainly is okay, and it weighs 487 grams. Let's go around the tablet a bit here. We've got a connector for a keyboard cover. That's the same keyboard that works with the iPad 7 and with the iPad 8, and I believe Apple introduced that keyboard for the very first iPad Pro generation. Then on this side, we've got the old Lightning connector and two speakers, and the sound quality of these speakers, especially for this price, is very good. I like the sound a lot from the speakers, but there's one downside. We only get two speakers here. They are stereo speakers, of course, but just on this side are two speakers. No speakers on this side and no speakers on the other side. That means when you're watching a movie, the sound comes from just one side. And that's quite distracting when you're used to tablets where the sound comes from both sides. Like I'm also reviewing the Xiaomi Pad 5 at the moment, and I have the iPad Pro, iPad Air and so on. And with all those tablets, usually the sound comes from both sides, which is great when you're watching a movie. But then when you switch to the iPad 9, the sound comes from just this one side. And sure, the sound is great, but it's a bit distracting that you don't hear anything from this side. So that's one downside. Then we've got the standard audio controls here, a standard power button, and it's the only iPad left with a standard headphone jack. There's no micro SD card slot, of course. Alright, let's get to the screen. The Apple iPad 9 has a 10.2-inch IPS display with good viewing angles. Colors look nice, contrast is pretty good as well. It's a very nice screen actually. It's 500 nits in brightness, which is just 100 nits below the iPad Pro, and it has the same brightness as the iPad mini and iPad Air. So that is really nice to see, this brightness in such an affordable tablet. It also has a quite high resolution of 2160 by 1620 pixels, so text and icons do look very sharp, so that all is great. Now there is one big downside with this screen, and that it is still not laminated. Just like the iPad 5, iPad 6, iPad 7 and iPad 8 and now iPad 9, the screen still in 2021 is not laminated. That is really a huge bummer. I think I would have loved to see, a laminated screen here. It means that below the touch screen and the IPS layer between, there's a little air gap that's visible. It's just a couple of millimeters, maybe 2-3 millimeters, but it means if you're touching the screen, it sometimes looks like you're not touching the screen directly, and that's especially visible when using the Apple Pencil. And also it means that reflections are a bit more visible as well. And maybe you can see here, of course, every screen reflects, but the iPad 9 certainly does as well. And one reason for that is the non-laminated screen. That really is a bummer. And you can especially see that when using the Apple Pencil, you just have the feeling, and it looks like you're not touching the screen directly, because you're not. There is this little air gap in between. Pretty much every other tablet in this price range has a laminated screen, and that includes even the very cheap Samsung Galaxy Tab A7 or Galaxy Tab S6 Lite. They all have laminated screen. The iPad 9 really is among very few tablets where the screen is not laminated. That's a huge bummer, but I guess Apple does that to not cannibalize iPad Air sales, because if the screen would be laminated, for many there would be no reason at all to get an iPad Air. Now let's get to the Apple Pencil. The iPad 9 supports the very first Apple Pencil generation. That's the Apple Pencil that Apple introduced with the very first iPad Pro tablets. Now this first generation Apple Pencil is supported by the iPad 9 only. All the other ones like the iPad mini, iPad Air and iPad Pro support the Apple Pencil 2 alone, not the first one. But it doesn't matter much, because this pen is a very nice and good active stylus. You charge it using the lightning port of the iPad or a cable which comes with the Apple Pencil. You have to pay around $100 for the pen. You charge it like this or using a cable, but of course this is the nicer method, because then you don't have to carry around an extra cable. And this port is protected by a little magnetic cap here. And the pen is comfortable to hold. It's very glossy plastic, but it does feel nice and it's comfortable to hold, and you certainly can write with it comfortably for a long time. And of course Apple has a lot of software support for the pen, including Apple Notes and many gestures. And it's a nice stylus, very precise, supports over 4000 levels of pressure sensitivity. And it's a good pen. Like I can see many students writing with this pen on the iPad 9. However, it's not perfect, because I mentioned already that the screen is not laminated. So it does look, especially when you want to draw very precisely, then you will notice that the tip is not touching the screen's IPS layer directly. That certainly is a downside. So if you want to make very precise drawings, or if you just want to have an amazing experience, then you've got to get an iPad Air or iPad Pro or a Samsung tablet like the Galaxy Tab S6 Lite on the lower end. There the screen is fully laminated. This also is a 60 Hz screen. That means it does not look that as if the writing from the pen is super instant, like it does on the iPad Pro with 120 Hz or the Galaxy Tab S7 with 120 Hz. But this is certainly one of the better 60 Hz experiences. I don't think it's that much of a problem on the iPad 9 as it is on some other tablets. Let's look at the internal hardware. Inside the iPad 9 runs an Apple A13 processor together with 3 GB of RAM and a 64 or 256 GB internal storage. There's no 32GB option anymore, thankfully, but there's also no 128GB option, and you can get it with 4G as well. My Geekbench 5 benchmark comparison is super interesting. You can see that it is quite a bit faster than the Apple iPad 8 and then the Apple iPad 7 and 6 of course as well. So if you are going to upgrade a bit, you do get quite a lot more performance. You can also see that the performance is better than on the Samsung Galaxy Tab S7. So yes, this cheap mid-range iPad is faster than every Android tablet out there. That really is amazing, and you can see it here in the benchmarks. It's not as fast as the iPad Air and certainly not as fast as the M1 iPad Pro, but it almost can reach the 2018 iPad Pro, which is interesting to see as well. My gaming test confirms the great performance. You can see me playing Call of Duty here, and you can set the graphics to very high, and it does run great. And I'm sure that will be the case for pretty much every game like PUBG Mobile, Asphalt 9 and so on as well, because this processor is very fast. So you should be able to play every game very nicely, even for some years to come. So the performance, especially for this price, really is amazing. And I can see this to be the perfect gaming tablet for most because of this fast performance for such an affordable price. Now let's check out the software. The iPad 9 is shipping with iPadOS 15, just like the iPad mini, but you can get the same software for other iPads using an update which Apple is providing for most iPads already, unless it's really, really old. There are a couple of interesting new features with iPadOS 15. One is that you can use widgets on the home screen now, and that goes for everywhere on the home screen. Of course, we know that from Android already for pretty much since forever, but now iPadOS supports it as well. Another feature that Apple copied a bit from Android is the app library. Of course, Android had this since forever, but now on iPads 2, you don't have to have every app on the home screen now. You can just delete it from the home screen, and it still is inside the app library. There's another new multitasking feature. There's this little button. If you press it, you can easily and quickly open two apps side by side, and that works great. Of course, this split screen view is not new, but this little button is new. There's also a new quick note feature using a gesture with the Apple Pencil. So you can really quickly start a note and annotate something while you're using Safari or pretty much every other app. If you want to know more about iPadOS 15, check out my long-term review of the iPad Pro with the M1 processor, which was just released recently, and there you can see some more additional features of iPadOS 15. Alright, that's my unboxing and hands-on of the new Apple iPad 9. I now have to start my full review, but my first impressions are pretty good, but not amazing. For this price, the performance really is amazing. And if you want to have like the best value for your money and you want like a very fast performance, then this will probably be the best tablet to get. It also has a nice build quality, and the Apple Pencil is good. The keyboard cover is a nice feature, and the software is amazing, of course, because you can also get very professional apps like Adobe Photoshop or LumaFusion, which like this don't really exist for Android, at least not in the same quality. But it's not perfect. For once, the speakers are on one side only, so the sound comes from one side only. That means it cannot be the perfect entertainment tablet. And the biggest downside is the not laminated screen. It's really sad to see in 2021 that we get a $329 tablet where the screen is not laminated. With all competitors, the screen is laminated, but on the iPad 9 it's not. That's really a bummer, and I'm sure Apple does not even do that to save money, because it should be cheap to get a laminated screen these days. I'm guessing the only reason they do that is to not cannibalize the iPad Air sales, because otherwise, especially with this A13 processor, there's almost no reason why you would get an iPad Air otherwise. But yeah, so the not laminated screen continues to be a big downside of the iPad 9. Alright, that's been my unboxing and hands-on of the new Apple iPad 9. If you have any questions, write them down below. I'm NJ from mynexttablet.com. Thanks for watching and see you next time.